My son gave me a smart tablet for Christmas, said it would help me stay connected with the grandkids. 3 days later, I noticed something on the screen I wasn't supposed to see. 2 weeks after that, my daughter-in-law was sitting in a police station being asked why her name was on my bank accounts. I didn't see it coming, not even close. I turned 67 in November, and by December I was eating Christmas dinner alone for the 2nd year in a row. My wife Barbara had passed away 3 winters earlier. Pancreatic cancer. 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end. We'd been married 41 years, and I still hadn't figured out how to cook for one person without making too much and throwing half of it out. The house felt different after she was gone. Not empty exactly, more like a place that used to have sound and now didn't. I'm a retired electrician, spent 32 years with the same union local out of Columbus, Ohio. I know how to fix things, wiring circuits, broken connections, but grief doesn't have a schematic. My son Kevin lived about 40 minutes away in Westerville with his wife Amanda and their 2 kids. We saw each other on holidays, sometimes a Sunday here and there. He'd call every couple of weeks. We weren't close the way Barbara and I had hoped, but we weren't estranged either. Just 2 adults who ran out of things to say once the woman who'd connected us was gone. Amanda had always been pleasant enough, organized, ambitious, the kind of person who kept a color-coded calendar on the refrigerator. She worked in real estate. Kevin managed logistics for a distribution company. They had a nice house, nice cars, the kind of life that looked solid from the outside. Christmas morning, Kevin and Amanda came by with the kids. My grandchildren, 7 and 9, opened presents on the living room floor while the adults drank coffee. It was the best 2 hours I'd had in months. Just noise and wrapping paper and a reason to make a real breakfast. Before they left, Kevin handed me a flat box. "Almost forgot," he said. "This is from all of us." Inside was a tablet. A nice one. Thin, fast, the kind I never would have bought for myself. "You can video call the kids on it," Kevin said. "Anytime, they'd love that." Amanda smiled. "And it's easier to manage things on. Banking, appointments, everything's in one place." I thanked them. I meant it. I set it up on the kitchen counter that afternoon, charged it overnight, and by the next morning, I'd figured out how to use it well enough to video call my granddaughter and watch her show me her new art kit for 20 minutes. It was the happiest I'd felt since Thanksgiving. I had no idea what was already inside that thing. The person who figured it out was my neighbor, Bud Whitmore. Bud's not an easy man to describe without underselling him. He's 72, retired Army Signal Corps, spent 20 years working communications intelligence before he came back to Ohio and started fixing farm equipment for a living. He's the kind of man who doesn't talk much, but when he does, you listen, because he's already thought through everything you haven't. We've been neighbors for 11 years. We'd shed many a Saturday morning over coffee and not said much. After Barbara died, he was the one who showed up with a casserole and didn't ask how I was doing, which was exactly right. He came by the day after Christmas to return a socket set I'd lent him in October. I had the tablet sitting on the kitchen counter, and without even meaning to, I mentioned Kevin had given it to me. Bud picked it up, turned it over, looked at the back, the charging port, the camera. The way he handled it reminded me of a bomb disposal tech in a movie, careful and deliberate, like he was reading something the rest of us couldn't see. "Who set this up for you?" he asked. "Kevin did most of it." "Why?" He didn't answer right away. He set it on the counter and pulled out his reading glasses and looked at the settings menu for a long minute. "You got a laptop," he said. "In the den." "Come show me." We sat down at my desk, and Bud started talking me through what he was looking at. I'm not a stupid man, but I'm not a tech person either. What he explained to me was this. The tablet had been set up with a remote access profile. Not something you'd find if you were just using it normally. It was buried in the device management settings. Whoever configured it had enabled screen mirroring and remote viewing. Everything on that tablet, every website I visited, every password I entered, every account I accessed, was being sent somewhere else in real time. "Someone can watch everything you do on this," Bud said quietly. I stared at the screen. That can't be right. I know what I'm looking at. He wasn't unkind about it, just certain. My son gave me this. I know. He looked at me the way he'd looked at me the day Barbara died. Steady, sad, not going to pretend it wasn't what it was. "You need to talk to someone who can pull the access logs, find out what address this is sending to." I sat there for a moment. Kevin had set up that tablet. Kevin, who I'd watched play Little League in this backyard, who I'd driven to the emergency room at 2 in the morning when he broke his collarbone falling off a roof he wasn't supposed to be on. Kevin. Could be a mistake, I said. Could be some default setting. Could be, Bud said, but it's not a default setting. He left me with the information and didn't push. That was always his way. He gave me the facts and let me do what I needed to do with them. I sat in that den for an hour after he left, looking at the tablet on the desk like it was something that might move. Then I called the non-emergency line for the Columbus Division of Police. The detective I spoke with was a woman named Sergeant Elaine Castillo. She'd been with their financial crimes unit for 16 years, and she had the kind of voice that made you feel like you weren't the first person to call with something like this, which was both comforting and terrible. She asked me to bring the tablet in, and I did the next morning. Their digital forensics examiner confirmed what Bud had found, and then some. The remote access profile was tied to an email address. The mirroring had been active since December 26th, my Christmas morning. Whoever set it up had done it before wrapping the box. I sat across from Sergeant Castillo in a small office with a window that looked out onto a parking structure, and I asked her the question I already knew the answer to. "You think my son did this?" "We don't know yet," she said. "What we know is that someone configured this device before it was given to you. We'll trace the access point." She leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Hargrove, I need to ask you not to confront anyone about this yet. Not your son, not anyone. If they don't know you know, that's an advantage." "What am I supposed to do in the meantime?" "Use it," she said. "Normally, go about your life. We need to see what they're looking for." I drove home in the kind of January cold that makes Ohio feel like a punishment. The tablet sat on the passenger seat in its case. I brought it inside and set it on the kitchen counter and stood there looking at it for a long time. Then I started using it. I'm not a performer, never have been, but I am a man who spent 32 years doing a job that required patience and attention, and I know how to move through a task without rushing it. I pulled up my online banking app and browsed around. Let my savings balance sit on the screen for a minute before I closed it. I searched for estate planning attorneys in Columbus. I looked up what my house was worth on one of those real estate sites and left that up for a while too. I didn't have to wait long. 4 days into the new year, Amanda called me. "Just checking in," she said. Had I thought any more about whether the house was too much to manage on my own? She knew a great agent, not herself. She was careful to say, someone neutral, who could give me a fair market assessment if I ever wanted it. No pressure, just something to keep in mind. I gripped the phone and kept my voice level. "I haven't really thought about it," I said. "Of course, just wanted to plant a seed." She laughed softly. "We worry about you out there alone, you know." After she hung up, I stood in the kitchen with my hand still on the phone. I'd looked up my home's value on the tablet 2 days earlier. Now here was Amanda, unprompted, bringing up selling the house. She was watching. I thought about Barbara. We'd bought this house in 1989. Barbara had painted the kitchen herself, twice, because she changed her mind about the color after the first coat dried. She'd planted the rose bushes along the back fence the summer Kevin was born. She'd died in the bedroom down the hall. Amanda was watching me through a screen, looking at my finances and thinking about what I was worth. I called Sergeant Castillo and told her what happened. She said it was useful. She asked me to keep going. The hardest part wasn't the acting, it was the waiting. You spend your whole adult life building a certain understanding of the people around you, and then something cracks it open and you have to keep smiling while you look at the damage. I went to Kevin's house for dinner the second Sunday in January, the way I did most months. Pot roast, the kids running around, football on in the background. Normal. Except I was watching Amanda differently now. The way she asked about my knee, whether I was keeping up with my prescriptions, whether I'd thought about a medical alert system. Small things, planted things. She was building a ledger. Dad, Kevin said during a commercial, "Have you ever thought about a trust, like a living trust?" Amanda was saying it might make sense at your age, make things easier for everyone down the road. "Haven't thought much about it," I said. "It's really just about protecting your assets, making sure everything goes where you want it to go." He said it like it was something he'd read somewhere, not something he'd been coached on. Maybe he had been. Maybe he hadn't. I looked at my son and tried to find the boy I knew inside the man sitting across from me, and I wasn't sure what I found. That evening I drove home and sat in the driveway for a few minutes before going inside. I remember the summer afternoon when Kevin was maybe 9. We were out back and I was teaching him how to wire a basic circuit for a school project. A battery, some wire, a small light bulb. He was frustrated because he couldn't get it to light up and he kept wanting to give up, and I kept saying, "Check your connections. Every problem is just a broken connection somewhere." Eventually he found the loose wire and the bulb came on and he looked up at me like I'd just given him the secret to something. "How'd you know?" he said. "Because that's always what it is," I told him. "Every time, just check your connections." I sat in the driveway in January and wondered when our connection had broken and how long I'd failed to notice. The truth came out on a Tuesday, the way uncomfortable things usually do. I'd been looking up power of attorney forms on the tablet deliberately and had left a notepad nearby with some figures scribbled on it, the kind of thing that would look like I was trying to organize my finances, the kind of thing that might suggest I was considering making changes. Amanda called Kevin, and Kevin called me that afternoon. "Hey Dad, I was thinking maybe we should all sit down, you, me, and Amanda. An attorney she knows does estate planning. Really good guy. We could just get things organized. Get a power of attorney in place so there's someone to handle things if, something happens." "That sounds like a lot," I said. "It's really not. Just a couple signatures. Give us peace of mind." He paused. "Give you peace of mind." 2 weeks later, I found what I needed in the one place I hadn't thought to look. Amanda had dropped off some paperwork for me in early January. Insurance documents, she'd said, something Kevin had handled. She'd left them in a manila envelope on my kitchen table. I'd moved them to the small filing cabinet I keep in the spare bedroom without really looking at them closely. When I finally opened the envelope, I found the insurance paper she'd mentioned. I also found a second document tucked behind them. It was a form from my life insurance company. A beneficiary change request, partially filled out. My name already printed at the top, a signature line at the bottom, blank, waiting. There was a sticky note on it in Amanda's handwriting. A single word, Thursday. She'd intended to present this to me at whatever meeting Kevin was trying to set up. She'd already filled out the form. She was just waiting for my signature. I sat on the edge of the spare bed for a long time. Then I went back to the kitchen, picked up my phone, and called Sergeant Castillo. "I have what you need," I said, "and I think I know how to finish this." What followed was the kind of careful, quiet coordination that doesn't look like much from the outside. Sergeant Castillo contacted the Financial Crimes Unit. I called my bank, explained the situation, and flagged my accounts. I called my insurance company and told them no changes were to be processed without my direct in-person authorization. I updated my passwords on everything from a different device, one Amanda had never touched. And I agreed to Kevin's meeting. We scheduled it for a Friday afternoon at Kevin's house. I told Kevin I'd looked into it and I thought he was right. It was time to get organized. He sounded relieved, which was its own kind of information. Sergeant Castillo had been coordinating with the county DA's office. She'd traced the remote access from the tablet to an email account registered to Amanda. The access logs showed she'd been monitoring my device daily since Christmas. They had the beneficiary form. They had the access logs. They had Amanda's pattern of contacts with a real estate attorney about the estimated value of my property. Contacts made without my knowledge. What they needed was to let it play out, so the intent was clear and on record. I arrived at Kevin's house on Friday a few minutes early. Amanda answered the door in her work clothes, professional, ready. The dining room table had documents laid out, a pen already uncapped. The estate planning attorney she'd mentioned, a man named Gerald Foss, was already there, sitting to one side. Kevin was in the kitchen making coffee. I sat down. Sergeant Castillo and a detective from the DA's office were parked a block away. Amanda started with pleasantries, how I was feeling, how the drive over had been. Then she slid the documents toward me, living trust forms, and there at the bottom of the stack, the beneficiary change form, the same one I'd found in the envelope. "We just need a couple of signatures," she said, "nothing complicated." "Before I sign anything," I said, "I need to ask you something." She smiled. "Patient, of course." "Why is my tablet sending everything I do to your email address?" The smile didn't disappear all at once. It went in stages, like a circuit losing power from one end. "I don't know what you mean," she said. "The remote access profile, the screen mirroring, it's been running since Christmas morning, since before you wrapped the box." I pulled out a printed copy of the access log that Bud had helped me document, set it on the table. "Your email address is right there." Kevin came out of the kitchen with 2 mugs and stopped in the doorway. "Elaine," I said, using Sergeant Castillo's name, which was the signal we'd agreed on. The front door opened. Sergeant Castillo and her colleague came in. Gerald Foss stood up and started to say something about attorney-client privilege, and then apparently thought better of it. Kevin didn't move from the doorway. He was still holding both mugs of coffee. He looked at Amanda, then at me, then at Amanda again. "Kevin," I said, "did you know?" He shook his head. His face was the color of unfinished drywall. Amanda was talking quickly, saying it wasn't what it looked like, saying she was just trying to help, saying I'd never have handled things on my own. She wasn't talking to me, she was talking to Kevin. He set both mugs down on the counter very carefully, like he was afraid of spilling something. Then he sat down at the dining room table, put his head in his hands, and didn't say another word. Amanda was arrested that afternoon. Charges included elder financial abuse, fraud, and unauthorized computer access under the Ohio Computer Crime Statutes. Gerald Foss, to his apparent credit, had not known the full extent of what he was being brought in to facilitate. He cooperated fully with investigators. Kevin called me that evening from his car, parked outside his house. He talked for a long time and said very little, that he didn't know, that he'd known things had been difficult for Amanda financially. Her business had struggled. They had debt he hadn't fully understood the depth of, but that he hadn't known about this, that he was sorry. I believed him that he hadn't known. I wasn't sure what to do with that. "We'll figure it out," I told him. Not because I was certain we would, but because he's my son. And that's the kind of thing you say to your son at 11 o'clock at night when his life is coming apart. Spring came the way it always does in Ohio. Slow, then sudden. One morning in April, I woke up and the rose bushes along the back fence had started to bud, the ones Barbara had planted 30 years ago, and I'd kept alive through nothing but stubbornness and the occasional bag of fertilizer. I'd changed everything. Accounts, passwords, beneficiaries. Left my estate to a mix of charities Barbara had cared about and a small educational fund for my grandchildren, with conditions that would keep Amanda away from it, regardless of what happened with the marriage. The marriage didn't survive. Kevin and Amanda separated in March. I didn't ask for details and he didn't offer them. He started coming by on Sundays again. Not every week, but some weeks. We'd have coffee, watch whatever game was on, not say a lot. Slowly, unevenly, figuring out what was left. One Sunday in May, he helped me prune the rose bushes. He'd never done it before, never had any reason to learn, and I showed him how, and he was bad at it, and we both said so, and for a few minutes, standing in the backyard in the warm afternoon, something felt almost normal. I should have come around more, he said. Yeah, I said, you should have. It wasn't a forgiveness, it wasn't a reckoning, it was just the truth, said out loud, which is sometimes the best you can do. Bud came over for coffee that same week. We sat on the back porch and he asked how things were, and I said getting there, which he accepted, because he always accepts the true answer even when it's an incomplete one. You did the right thing, he said. Doesn't feel like the right thing feels like anything, I said. He nodded. That's usually how it goes. There's a photo on the mantle in my living room that Barbara took in the summer Kevin turned 11. We were at a neighborhood cookout, and Kevin had just won some kind of silly relay race. He's standing there with both arms up, this enormous grin, completely full of something that only 11-year-olds have. Pure, uncomplicated joy with no fine print. I look at that photo sometimes and I miss who he was in it. I miss who I was in it. The father standing just out of frame who still believed that if you just checked your connections, you could fix whatever was broken. Some things you can't rewire. Some breaks don't close back up. They just scar over. And you learn to live around the scar the same way you learn to live around anything else that's become a permanent part of you. I still use a wired connection for everything I can. Old habit, but I check everything now. Every account, every document, every person who says, trust me, let me help you, I've got this handled. I turned 68 this past November. Kevin called. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important, which felt like more than enough. At my age, you learn to be grateful for the connections that hold. Even the repaired ones. Even the ones that only barely made it. Especially those. I think about the light bulb a lot. The one Kevin and I wired together in the backyard when he was 9 years old, sitting in the grass with a battery and a few feet of copper wire and a little bulb that wouldn't light up no matter what he tried. He wanted to quit. I told him to check his connections. Every problem, I said, is just a broken connection somewhere. He found the loose wire. The bulb came on. He looked up at me like I'd handed him something valuable. I didn't know then that I was teaching him something he'd one day need to use on me. What Amanda did had a logic to it, and that's the part that took me the longest to sit with. She didn't wake up one morning and decide to become a person who exploits her father-in-law. She got into debt. She got desperate. She found a path that looked like it might work and she took it, one small step at a time. The tablet, the questions about the house, the beneficiary form tucked behind the insurance papers. Each step probably felt manageable. Justified even. That's how people talk themselves into things they'd never have agreed to at the start. But there's a cost to that kind of thinking, and it always comes due. Not because the universe is keeping score in any mystical sense, but because actions have weight. They leave evidence. They change the people around you in ways you can't predict or control. Amanda thought she was being careful. She wasn't careful enough because she underestimated the thing she was trying to take from me. Not my money, not my house, but my attention. My ability to notice. My refusal to stop paying attention just because I was old and alone and grieving. I had to be honest with myself during those weeks in January. There were moments when I wanted to believe it wasn't what it was, wanted to find the innocent explanation. That's the pull of love, or what used to be love, the desire to protect the version of someone you thought you knew. I had to look at the evidence instead of the feeling. That's not a cold thing to do, it's a necessary one. Intelligence without honesty is just a smarter way to fool yourself. And then there was the harder part, staying steady. Going to Kevin's house for dinner, making conversation, sitting across from Amanda while she asked whether I thought about the house, about my health, about getting things organized. Every one of those evenings cost something, but I held on, because I understood that falling apart before the right moment would have cost more. There's a kind of endurance that isn't passive. It's active, deliberate, chosen. You hold yourself together, not because you're not hurting, but because you've decided the truth matters more than your comfort right now. Kevin is still my son. That didn't change. What changed is that I know now the connection between us had been fraying for years without either of us doing the maintenance. That's on both of us. We're doing the work now. Slowly, on Sunday afternoons with coffee and not much to say. It's not what I wanted. It's what we have. At 68, I've learned that the people who love you don't always act like it, and the people who act like they love you don't always mean it. The only reliable thing is to stay awake. Check your connections. Do the work of knowing who's actually in the room with you. Barbara would have seen it faster than I did. She always could read people. I'm still learning.